What's going on, everybody? I'm Matt Dimech.
I'm Justin Perez.
And today we're bringing you our fantasy football start and sit picks for Week 5 of the NFL. My first start this week, I'm going to be taking Josh Jacobs. Last week, Jacobs was averaging 5.67 yards per carry, marking his highest on the season. He only got 9 carries as the Packers fell behind early and they had to abandon their run game. This week, he has a much more favorable matchup against the Rams, who have been letting teams run all over them this season. They have given up the most rushing yards per game out of any team in the NFL. Jordan Love had a rough go in his first game back under center for the Packers after going down with an injury week 1. He threw 3 interceptions against the Vikings. And I imagine the Packers are going to try to take the workload off him a little bit, look at some more shorter reads, which should create a lot more opportunities for Josh Jacobs.
To build on the Packers this week, my first starting pick is Jayden Reed. I personally have Reed in fantasy. He has been balling out for me. And the 2 games with Jordan Love, he has 14 total targets. He's Green Bay's favorite medium to deep threat weapon, which poses a problem for the Rams defense. The Rams are a bottom 5 pass defense in the NFL in air yards. And also, they have allowed the 4th most 40-plus yard catches in the NFL, which is where Reed dominates. Furthermore, I know one concern in Green Bay is that they have a very crowded wide receiver room. Jayden Reed is the clear one in this offense. He has no concern to dominate. 60 total fantasy points with Love in complete. Reed always finds himself open. He's going to dominate this week against the Rams defense.
For my second star, I'm also going to be taking a wide receiver. I'm going to be going with Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin has been Mr. Consistent in fantasy football for the last handful of years. This season, he's been off to a hot start. He's had 8 or more targets in every game this season and has actually out-targeted the wide receiver 1, Evans, through the first 3 games. Godwin has found success this year finding the end zone. He's scored in each of his first 3 games, but failed to score in his 4th game. I'm predicting a shootout in their division matchup against the Falcons this week, which should keep the Bucs' passing offensive alive throughout the game. Now, the Falcons are one of the better passing defenses in the NFL. They're only allowing 191 yards per game, which ranks them around 13th. However, that wasn't an issue for Godwin in their matchup against the Broncos in Week 3, who currently boast the 3rd best passing defense in the NFL. Godwin brought in 6 catches for 53 yards and a touchdown in that game. I'm expecting Godwin to continue his impressive start to the season this week.
My second starting pick is going to be Xavier Worthy. Rashee Rice went down with the season-ending ACL tear on this past weekend. He had previously been the one in the offense receiving the most target share and the most targets in this offense. I believe Worthy's able to fill this role very well because the Chiefs traded up to get him in the first round. Let's not forget this guy ran a 4.21 40-yard dash. He's the fastest receiver in the NFL. The Chiefs are going to get this guy involved. The first week he had 2 touchdowns, and that was with Rice in the offense. Last week he also had a touchdown. He has the fastest miles per hour run this year for a touchdown. This guy's explosive. He's going to dominate. And the Saints game is going to be a shootout. The Saints are bottom 5 in the NFL with QB pressure and sacks. This gives Mahomes more time in the pocket, meaning that Worthy's going to be open downfield. I would start him this week.
For my first sit of the week, I'm also going with someone on the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to be going with Carson Steele. Carson Steele's value tanked after this week. An early fumble in this past week's game basically removed him from the offense for the Chiefs in this game. Veteran back Kareem Hunt stepped up and had an impressive game, putting up 11 fantasy points. Hunt's expected to take up the RB1 role in the absence of Isaiah Pacheco. Andy Reid has a history of having a very short leaf with rookie running backs. He recently commented on Steele's turnover issues, saying that that's something that he's got to get figured out. With Hunt taking over as the starter for the Chiefs, Steele should not be in fantasy lineups going into Week 5.
I agree. And for my first sit, I had Devontae Adams. I know this is a bold take. Adams was drafted in the late first round, early second round in most fantasy leagues, but he wants out. Today, he just requested for a trade. This Raiders offense is just not good, plain and simple. You know, he has a very unfavorable matchup for him against Pat Surtain. We saw how Garrett Wilson did last week against Pat Surtain. The Jets' offense is significantly better than the Raiders' offense, as we've seen throughout the season, and the Broncos' defense locked them up completely. We can see the Raiders having a very bad game script. Adams may not even play, so if he doesn't play, then this won't even be a factor, but he's coming off a hamstring injury, which has haunted him for years. Now, we know that if Adams was your first-round pick, maybe first wide receiver 1, you may have to play him, but if you have any viable option, anyone else, I'd recommend sitting Adams this week.
And for my second and final sit, I'm going to be going with Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews just doesn't have a very large role in the Ravens' new offense. The Ravens run most of their offense out of the backfield. Derrick Henry and Justice Hill have taken large roles alongside Lamar Jackson in their three-pronged rushing attack. Andrews has only received one target in each of the last two games, and in each of their last two games, Lamar has only dropped back to pass less than 20 times, limiting opportunities for Andrews. When Lamar was throwing 35, 40 times per game, the Ravens found themselves 0-2. And since this change in approach, the Ravens are now on a 2-0 run. Simply put, there are just going to be too few targets for owners to rely on the production they've seen from Andrews in recent years.
And my last sit pick is going to be Zach Moss. Zach Moss has a very unfavorable matchup this week against the Ravens, who completely dominated the Buffalo Bills offense. James Cook was held to 39 yards and only one reception, a season low for him. I think we can all say Zach Moss is a worse running back than James Cook, and Zach Moss is going to get dominated. The Bengals also do not have a very favorable game script. Their defense is horrible, and the Ravens are going to dominate them all night. Therefore, they're going to be passing a lot more. We can also see in production, Chase Brown's role in this offense has increased dramatically by 20%. This is a very large gap because they have three running backs that they use consistently, as well as a very crowded wide receiver room. We can expect not much from Zach Moss this week. His production is going down. They have a tough matchup against that Ravens defensive line, and they're going to pass a lot. So, with that being said, I would sit Zach Moss this week.
That's going to do it for our Week 5 fantasy football picks. Good luck out there, fantasy owners.